Well, good morning, everybody. I know Ken Ross said people looked better than they probably should have this morning. I think there were some overachievers out there, quite frankly, getting ready for hospitality night tonight. So on behalf of the Adjutants General Association of the United States, I'm pleased to present a brief report on our activities. I was elected in May along with John Harris, Major General John Harris from the great state of Ohio as the Vice President, Army. And the other officers of the association include Major General Mike Stensel, who is the Vice President for Air from the great state of Oregon. Major General Chris Callahan is our Secretary from the state of Rhode Island, and then Major General Fran Yvonne from Connecticut is our Treasurer. So, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's been a big change in tags since 2019, January of 2019. We have 36 new Adjutants General in the body. And since the last time NGAUS met in 2019 in person in Denver, there's been 20 new tags. So we were settling in and getting to know each other, and it's been great to get the family back together. I wanted to share our legislative priorities with you, and it's an echo of some of the things that General Hokanson talked about in his keynote presentation. One of them is duty status reform. And our group, along with the working group called Team Godzilla, has been working with OSD, National Guard Bureau, and the team to make sure that legislation is as good as it can be, and the tags are fully on board for the introduction of duty status reform in NDA 23. Now, Category 4 needs a little bit of work yet, but there's nothing there that should stop this legislation from going forward and simplifying the lives of the soldiers and airmen and the families that we serve. We're also on board with General Hokanson's legislative objective of TRICARE for all. Premium-free health care is a must in our view for all of us, not just for readiness, but I think it's been said before, it's just simply the right thing to do for our folks. We continue to want to work on full-time manning in the Army National Guard in particular, but I'm convinced that that narrative must change. Can't be a narrative about readiness because, quite frankly, folks, we produce the readiness with what we're given regardless of the level we're at. And we don't put people in harm's way without ensuring that they have everything available to them before they leave. I think the narrative has to change to a quality of life issue for our full-time force, particularly in the Army National Guard, in order to produce that readiness. That's the narrative we have to go to. And then finally, Space National Guard. I would paraphrase what General Hyten said, Vice Chief of the Joint Chiefs. We don't need any more studies. We don't need to look at this anymore. We simply must do it now, a Space National Guard. Our Team Godzilla is a network of subject matter experts from across the states. And they have done some amazing work since that group formed 3 or 4 years ago for us. They've looked at the USPFO manual, studied and we put input in on the Joint Capability Assessment and Decision Process instruction for the Chief of the National Guard Bureau. Those are all firsts. And they've written position papers for us on things like Defend the Guard legislation that's out there in our state legislatures, and about 31 of those, in which the proposal is that a state legislature should somehow vote on whether or not the National Guard goes forward in support of this nation's security interests. I can tell you our position on that, that's bad legislation. Most importantly, though, recently, the Association of the United States Army posted on their website Land Warfare Paper 139, titled The Reserve Component Crisis Necessitates Re-Examining the Total Army Concept. Unfortunately, it was posted without any authorship attributed to it. Hard to evaluate the credibility of the paper. I've read it 3 or 4 times, and our Team Godzilla helped craft the response that the Association of the United States Army posted as well. And we're grateful for the opportunity to do that. But let me point out some things about that paper that need to be brought out into the light of day. The author claimed that the National Guard was going to be insolvent because of a $521 million bill that was associated with our response of putting 26,000 airmen and soldiers into our nation's capital to ensure a safe and peaceful transfer of power. That simply wasn't the case. That was an unplanned contingency operation that simply needed to be funded by Congress, and it was. They also claim that because of all that we've been doing in the past 18 months, whether it's COVID-19, civil unrest, election support, everything that's been talked about from this podium over the last 2 days, that in the Army National Guard, our retention and recruiting were suffering. Well, here's the fact. The fact is that at the end of June, the Army National Guard had 337,881 members assigned against an authorization of 336,500. That does not sound like a recruiting and retention problem to me. That sounds like a success. The author also suggested that there was great value in recapitalization and modernization of the Army National Guard by transferring armored brigade combat teams and Stryker brigade combat teams out of the Army National Guard into the active component and replacing them with infantry brigade combat teams. The author cited a CBO study that said an Army National Guard ABCT costs about $910 million a year to support and operate. But the author failed to report out of that same study that the active component cost for the same force structure is $3.1 billion a year. That doesn't sound like a formula for success for saving money. It sounds like a way to create insolvency. But one thing we did agree with the author on. We agreed with the author's assertion that the Army National Guard is the go-to force for the United States Army, supporting the fact that we are the primary operational combat reserve of the United States Army and the United States Air Force. That's one thing they got right. We're grateful to the Association of the United States Army to respond, and to respond with facts. And I'm reminded of Major General Barry's his impassioned speech, his plea to remind us all that we need to fight for what we need, fight for our people, and fight for what's right. But in this case, we had to fight misinformation, malinformation, and disinformation. But just like our forces are, your Adjutant General always ready, always there to do that, to tell our story. And nobody can tell it better than us, than this crowd, than this group right here. Not just the Adjutant General, but from the first member in the organization to the last. We have to tell it in the halls of Congress, in the halls of our state legislatures, and in the halls of Pentagon to remind them of who we are and what we do for this great nation. And finally, we have a monthly association synchronization call that involves not only AGAUS and Team Godzilla, but the National Guard Association of the United States, NGAUS, the National Governors Association, and the Association of the United States Army. That's made us better, it's made us stronger to fight what we need to do for the right things for our men and women and their families and employers that support us day in and day out as we serve this nation's interests in our states and our communities. Mr. Chairman, that's the report from the Adjutant General Association. Thank you for your opportunity.